Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife video for you. Today, we have my top 10 large pocket knives. I guess is the best way to describe it. Large folding knives, large modern folding knives, bruiser knives. I like that word a lot, but some of these aren't particularly bruiserly. What these are basically knives that are 3.5 inches or over, are meant to do some real work, and some of them are kind of in this category because they're big beefy knives. Some are just really long blades in a pocket knife that's still something you can actually carry. There's not gonna be anything too insane on here. I'm not gonna have, a big like a Cold Steel Voyager XL or anything like that. Stuff that you can actually really carry. One is pushing that, but it's still pretty easy to carry, a lot easier than you think, and that's part of the reason why I made the list. So let's get to it. These are all knives you can buy right now, and they are all ones that I have. If you don't see one on here, it's probably just because I don't have it or haven't experienced it yet. So, but please feel free to make comments down below with suggestions. That's why we're here, to sit around and talk about knives. So another one little caveat, the Sebenza is not on here. I do have a Sebenza 31. I do like it very, very much. It almost made on this list because it is definitely a knife that it's over 3.5 inches, and it can really do some real work. It is kind of Sebenza means work in foreign talk, so it is definitely a knife that could be on here, but for me, it's still just more of a really nice EDC. It's a little slim, it's a little lighter than a lot of these, so that's why it's not on here. But let's get going. Let's start off with, there are going to be two from this one particular company. I could honestly do this whole list probably from this one company, but we have two Cold Steels to start out. First up for me has to be the 8010. I actually called it in my first review of it as a gentle bruiser, and that's kind of what it is. This is a beefy knife, only 3.5 inches, barely makes the list as far as the blade length goes, but man, it's a tough sucker. Very thick blade stock. Ergos are still excellent. You have that great triad lock. This is just a tough knife, absolutely, for sure. And again, ergos are really good. It's not that bad to carry. The pocket clip is not awesome, but other than that, it's not too bad to carry. And it's just that noise it makes. Like, this means business, and is probably still my favorite thing that Cold Steel makes. You're looking at about $192, and again, a 3.5 inch blade, so barely makes the 3.5 inch and up thing. But yeah, an absolute bruiser for sure. Now this next one, I told you there was gonna be one on here that was a bit crazy. Of course it's a Cold Steel, but this knife is shockingly easy to carry for how big and heavy it is. And that would be the new Cold Steel 4 Max Scout. Only $111, 4 inches of blade. Again, AUS 10A steel, which seem to be working out pretty darn good. Ergos, of course, are great because it's huge. It's pretty hard not to have good ergos on it. And I know it looks gigantic, and it weighs 10.2 ounces. It's very heavy, but man, it carries really well. Especially, this is being recorded in April of 2020, being stuck around my house. Man, this thing has found its way in my pocket a whole lot because it's not leaving the house. I don't care if I have a big giant knife in my pocket. And having it in my pocket, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me a bit. I will caveat that I almost always wear a belt, so that may be a thing. You don't want to put this in your jogging pants. You are going to expose whatever you have underneath those sweatpants to your neighbors. So be careful about that, because it is a heavy thing. But yeah, it doesn't carry too bad. You can actually get your hand past in the pocket. Everything. Again, the big triad lock, all the stuff I said about the 8010. This has that in spades as well. And such a good value, especially if you consider paying by the ounce. Not bad at all. It's just a little over $10 an ounce, so not really too bad in the knife world. Yeah, you're getting a lot of knife for the money. It is very similar to the much more expensive regular 4 Max, which has S35 VN and titanium liners. Andrew Demko himself, who designed it, said, you're not really probably going to notice the difference. This is just this is just cheaper materials than the standard one. All right, put that aside somewhere. The hardest part of recording this video is me trying to figure out where to set these knives because they're all pretty big as I'm going down through. Next up, we have two more from another company, and it is, unsurprisingly, Spyderco. The Shaman. Definitely in that bruiser category. Little pricey now. They've gone up quite a bit. $202 for a 3.6 inch blade, S30V steel. Really nice contour jeets on handles. I love the ergos on the Shaman. It's just a very, very comfortable knife to hold and to use and to really get some work done. Pretty thick blade stock, pretty durable as far as that goes. And you get all the cool, you know, you get all the cool Spyderco stuff with it. So yeah, I like the Shaman a whole lot. It is one of the better things they make, despite the price. Back when I got this originally, it was $150. Now they've slowly ballooned up to $202, and they've made no real changes. It comes in a whole lot of sprint runs. If you want to check those out, some of those are pretty good value. You can get some really cool hard working steels with these, and they're not much more, but you have to be on it, you know, when they come available, and you have to decide, do I really want to use a sprint run that's probably going to go up in value? That's always a question with sprint runs. That's why you don't see many of them here. Yeah, Shaman is a really great knife. One of the better things that Spyderco's made in years. Just that price. Next up, another Spyderco. Now, this is not a big, the previous knives you've seen are pretty thick, heavy knives. This isn't a thick knife, but man, it's a big one. And that would be the Spyderco Native Chief. I love the Native Chief. Could easily put a Police 4 in here. Could easily put a Spyderco Military in here, absolutely. But I like the Native Chief better than either of those. It just has a few more modern touches. It's another member of the Native family. So is the Shaman, technically, by the way. And $168 and 4.1 inches, longest blade on this list. Still pretty decent blade stock. It's not super thick, but it's not ridiculously dainty either. But the ergos are really good. You can't actually choke up on it. And it's another knife that, for its size, this carries better than any other over 4-inch knife I've ever carried. You have right hand, left hand, up and down, you know, tip up, tip down carry. Completely ambidextrous knife because it's a back lock. I really like the Native Chief a whole lot. And yeah, $168, 4.1 inches. Not too bad at all. The Native Chief is, I think, one of the most underrated Spydercos they make. I think it's the best thing they made last year. Just a really, really cool knife. Now, next up, we have a knife that uses two words or two phrases together that you don't normally hear together. A Benchmade that I think is an excellent value. You have, for $132 and 3.72 inches, the Presidio 2 CF Elite. CF Elite refers to the scales. It's this new material they use, which is basically like FRN, but it's using carbon fiber instead of fiberglass. I think it looks good. It feels nice. And the Presidio 2 was always a great knife. Now it's just $132. The old one was aluminum handles and cost a lot more and was a lot heavier. I really like the Presidio 2 a whole lot. As a matter of fact, this is the large size. It comes in a mini as well if you want something a little smaller. I kind of plan on getting this and then probably getting a mini and then, you know, getting rid of this. No, I like this one so much. It's so easy to carry that I don't mind having the big one in my pocket. And I think I'm just going to stick with this one. I have not handled the mini yet. Maybe the mini will blow me away. But as of right now, I'm perfectly fine with this one. Pretty thin blade stock for, you know, what we're calling bruisers or whatever you want to call them. But just for a big knife, designed for law enforcement and stuff like that. And you can tell, very filling handle. It just feels like a whole lot of knife. And it is a whole lot of knife for $132. And you get the axis lock with all that fun stuff to do with it. Really, really cool. Now, this is the Slicey Dicey channel. So you knew there was going to be a hinder on here. Yeah. It is the ubiquitous XM18. I could put an XM24 on here and stuff. I just don't have one at the moment. But the XM18, 3.5 inches, barely making the list as far as length goes, but a really good, just overbuilt knife. This happens to be a Spear Point Fuller version. It's a DLT exclusive. I know this is entitled knives you can buy right now. This one, I do think they still have a couple of this version on their site, but it is an exclusive. But it's just to be indicative of the XM18 as a whole. If you want to find an XM18, you can find them. They come in so many different versions. There's going to be one or two available that are close to what you want. $425. Not terribly inexpensive, but you're getting an awesome knife. They're extremely well built, and just action is great and endlessly customizable, which is great. You can get all kinds of scales and hardware and all kinds of stuff for them. And you guys know I love the XM18. No surprise there that this is on the list, and I think it would be on almost anybody's list for this kind of thing. Next up, we're going to put the 0562 tie, which is based off of the XM18. This is also a Rick Hinderer design, built by Zero Tolerance. It's loosely based on the XM18. Basically, what you're looking at here is an XM18 no choil slicer, pretty much, as far as the shape goes. Handle's different. I do like the ergos even better than I like on the XM18. And, you know, 20 CV steel, very good steel. Action is great. It's a very tough built knife, and it does this. Always have to just show that noise on the on the 0562 tie. It's just, oh, that noise is so good. Nice deep carry clip. Just great knife. One of the best things that ZT makes. Next up, we are going to have another new ZT that's a bit controversial, but I have to say, it's grown on me, and I think it definitely deserves to be on the list. This is the 0308. Absolutely a big bruiser. You're looking at about $300 for 3.65 inches of blade. The controversial things about it are, well, the scale colors. It has a G10 scale on one side and the hole. Now, the color of the scale has kind of grown on me. That doesn't really bother me anymore. It's just a kind of plain old tan. But if you're talking about a hard use knife, the one downside is that hole does make it much easier to get crap inside the bearings. That's kind of annoying. It hasn't really been a problem, I haven't heard, for a lot of people in actual real use, but it is a thing that could theoretically be an issue. You're looking at 20 CV steel again, big, thick blade. This kind of harkens back to ZT's old days of making kind of overbuilt knives, and I kind of hope they do some more of that. They kind of had gotten away from that a little bit, and it's really nice to see them going back to that. Even if the knife itself isn't exactly perfect, if it just didn't have those holes, I would really, really love this thing. But it's still, as it is, a pretty darn good knife. And a nice milling, external milling on the titanium. It's a nice looking knife. And in the hand, ergos are great. And it has a tough blade. You can't deny that. Now, lastly, again, this is about $300 for 3.65 inches blade. Lastly, we have a couple budget ones. I probably should have said up front that there are some budget ones sitting at the end. Don't worry about it. You don't have to spend a ton to get a bruiser, to get a big knife. The Civivi Shredder, $61, 3 3/4 inches of blade. Excellent slicer. This is another one that isn't quite in that big, thick blade stock, you know, hack at a tree kind of large knife, but it's still just a good, big size, large knife if you just want that much reach. Great slicer, and again, $61. And Civivi, you know, quality and action. It's gonna be good. You know, it's gonna be good. And the shredder is probably my favorite thing Civivi makes, honestly. Now, lastly, you can't have one of these lists without a classic, and I think there is really no more classic in this category, especially in the budget side, than an Ontario Rat Model 1. 3.6 inches, about $40 in the D2 steel. Even cheaper if you get the AUS 8. Love this knife. And it is a knife that I reach for a lot when I actually just want to get some work done and not worry about hurting something. Awesome, awesome, awesome knife. Running on phosphor bronze washers, but the action on these things is always just great. This one is pretty old, and it's gone through a lot, and man, action is always still outstanding. I do need to clean it, though, a little bit. That's kind of gross, but sorry about that. But if knife gets used, who cares? Yeah. The Ontario Rat Model 1, I think, is just, yeah. If you don't have a lot of money to spend, it's one of my most recommended knives I give people, especially if they say they want a larger work knife. If you don't want a large one, they make the R2D2, the Rat Model 2 and D2 for that's 3 inches. So if you want a smaller one, yeah, they make that too. So great, great knife. And that's my list. That is my top 10 large EDC knives that you can buy right now. I think that's what I'm going to call it in the title. I just decided that 14 minutes into this video. So hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.